And welcome to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Stewart Willis. Stewart is the president of Asset Preservation Tax and Retirement Services. Stewart, how are you today?
I am doing unbelievable. How are you doing?
I am unbelievable as well. I always look forward to our time together in the studio because we have so much fun. The audience loves the shows, obviously. You're getting a ton of calls, and you're so busy. So I'm so thankful that you take the time to come in and do the shows every week.
No, it's great. It's, you know what, I've had the blessing of, realizing that, even during this crazy time in COVID, our company has done, super well. Our message is obviously resonating. I think that people are finally kind of saying, you know what, I think this is the right person for us. I think this is the right company for us. And sometimes it takes a year of people watching the show before they decide they want help. And, it's been a true blessing.
Absolutely. Well, Stewart, today I'd love to talk to you a little bit about a topic that's very important and very crucial for certain people, Social Security. There's been a lot of talk recently about some changes that perhaps could be coming. So I wanted to ask you, what's going on with Social Security?
Well, you know what, Cynthia, I used to say all the time that people, the government was never going to touch your Social Security. We've always been, kind of scared about the depletion of the Social Security Trust Fund. But, I always said, listen, senior citizens are the biggest voting bloc. There's no way they're going to touch it. But believe it or not, in 2015, Social Security was raided. A lot of your benefits that you paid in for your whole life got taken away. Some of those were the file and restrict options and the file and suspend options. There's a lot of those things that, everything's up in the air. We're in a tough time economically right now. We've come off the best economy the world's ever seen. And, with all of the crazy stuff with Russia and Ukraine, these wars looming, all of these crazy things happening, we're in different times. So I say nothing's off the table. There's a lot of things that are going on. But, Social Security is a huge part. I do truly believe that Social Security will be here, not just for you, but for your children and their children. Congress just needs to act to make sure it's properly funded. But there's a couple facts that I think people should know when it comes to Social Security. Some basic facts. How early can you file? Most people realize that the earliest you can file is 62 and the latest you can file is 70. Now, there is a moving part in there called your PIA. And what that is your primary insurance amount, which is determined at your full retirement age. Now that part's moving, Cynthia. So originally your full retirement age used to be 65. Now that's moving later and later and later. So it was 66 just a few years ago. For people now, it's between 66 and 6 months and 66 and 8 months. It's being delayed and delayed. And so what that does is it affects what kind of benefits you get. So if you take your benefits early, you take them at 62, assuming your full retirement age is 66, which most of you, that's already passed. But if your full retirement age was 66 and you take it at 62, then you're only getting 75% of your benefit at age 62. Now, that's an actuarial reduction because obviously you're taking it, for a longer period of time, you're going to get less benefit. If you delay it past your full retirement age, you get what's called a delayed retirement credit. And so a lot of people, try to figure out, hey, does it make sense to take it early? Does it make sense to take it late?
Yeah.
And some people listen to their friends at work and they say, oh, well, you need to take it at 62 because they're going to go bankrupt. We're never going to get our benefit. All I'll say is this. You need to make sure you think it through. You need to make sure you understand what the best benefit for you is because everybody's got a different story. And I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So I had a client that came in. She was 67 years old. She just came into this office here in Tempe, right, this is the Tempe office here where we film the shows. She came in, and she was a widow. She was married for, I think, 5 or 6 years. Her spouse passed away years ago, and she wasn't receiving any sort of Social Security benefit. And she didn't realize that she actually has a widow's benefit from this marriage. She's been, a widow for 20 plus years, but she's actually entitled to his benefit. And what that allows her to do now is to capture his benefit, which is bigger than hers, And while she's taking his benefit, she actually gets paid back 6 months of benefit, so she gets a big lump sum back pay, but she'll be able to collect his benefit until she turns 70. Then she turns on her benefit. And remember, those delayed retirement credits, for every year you delay Social Security past full retirement, you get an 8% delayed retirement credit. So she gets 132% of her benefit, or about 130 in her case. So she's getting almost an additional $150,000 of benefit over the next few years that she just didn't know she was entitled to.
Yeah.
Right? She wasn't a potential financial client of ours. She had tons of real estate, great lady, loved helping her. But I was able to help her on this Social Security issue, because I just knew the benefit. And sometimes it just takes getting a second opinion there. So we see tons of mistakes.
Yeah.
The other thing is, one of the mistakes is that people take it too early. They retire at 62, and then, they end up saying, you know what, I'm going to retire, I'm done working. And then they want to go back to work.
Right.
And what happens if you take Social Security before full retirement age and you go back to work? Well, now you start having income limitations, $17,000, $18,000, depending on your situation. You're allowed to make a certain point, but for every $2 you exceed that threshold, there's a $1 reduction in your benefit.
Wow.
So not only are you going to end up, paying penalties on this here, you could in fact end up paying big taxes on it as well, depending on your tax bracket. So yeah, so I think a lot of people don't realize that Social Security is taxable.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And for the average client, we're seeing $900,000 to $1.5 million of benefit over their lifetime as a couple. So it's really, really important. You're planning. If you have $1 million 401k, obviously you're planning for it. We hope you are. Why aren't you planning this big benefit for Social Security as well? It's a really important thing, especially if you're a high income earner, you have these big benefits over your lifetime. Do you want to pay taxes on it? And the way taxes work is that Social Security was never meant to be taxed. Franklin Delano Roosevelt said it would never be a revenue source for taxation. But believe it or not, in 1983, Ronald Reagan made it taxable for the first time. Then Bill Clinton made it more taxable, up to 85% taxable.
Wow.
So our 85% of it became taxable income. So it's not an 85% tax. But, there's certain strategies you can take to really plan around the taxation of Social Security, like Roth conversions, like harvesting your tax gains, etc. But that's why taxes are so important when it comes time to planning Social Security. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, Stewart. Thank you so much. Stewart, I know you have a very special offer to present to the viewers at home today. Let's talk about what that is before we open the phone lines.
Absolutely. So if you've done your job, if you've been good at putting away money into your 401k and IRA and other savings plans, thrift savings plan if you're a federal worker or a 457, if you work for the state of Arizona, if you've done your job, you've done your part by putting it away, and you want help to see how is this going to affect my Social Security down the road, what I'd say is give us a call, 833-652-7829. Take action today. Give us a call. We'd be glad to give you a second opinion on how your deferred taxes are going to start affecting your Social Security. You've saved all this money all your life. You've done a good job of saving, but now what you're facing is this massive tax, burden in retirement. But you have to take action today to get that second opinion. Give us a call, 833-652-7829, or click on that QR code that's on the bottom of your screen there. That'll take you to apsitaxes.com, and one of our advisors from Asset Preservation would be glad to meet with you, give you a complimentary portfolio review. We'll take a look at all the risks you're taking, all the fees you're paying, and what kind of tax issues are looming in the corner there. But you have to take action. Give us a call.
Stewart, thank you so very much. To the viewers at home, the phone number to call is on your screen. That number is 833-652-7829. We know you have a lot of questions for Stewart about how to plan your perfect retirement and how Social Security and taxes will play a role in that. We have to take a very short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk to Stewart about what you should be looking for in a financial advisor. Stay tuned.
What happens oftentimes is we'll run into clients or potential clients that have saved all this money, but they're 75, 80 years old. They've got this big pile of money, but they're not enjoying retirement because they're so worried about running out of money that they never actually get to enjoy their life's work. And so to me, it's really rewarding to be able to create a plan so that these people can have a great time in retirement, knowing that they're not going to run out, that they're going to be fine. I think it brings a smile to their face.
We get a lot of different people at a lot of different stages in their lives. And what we're able to do is, for some folks, it's able to tell them that you're on track. Keep doing what you're doing, and 15 years from now, you'll be retired and enjoying life the way you want it to be. For some people, it's people coming in and they're 3 to 5 years away from retirement, and you're able to tell them that, 5 years, 3 years, tomorrow, you're ready to go.
We are a complete shop. We handle estate planning, taxes, financial planning. We do a really in-depth cash flow analysis that is way more detailed than you'll see in the market.
Everything all in one spot, with the left hand always knowing what the right hand's doing. Because it's not just about the investments, but how's that going to affect your taxes? It's not where are you going to be 5 years from now, 15 years from now. And it's that back and forth full view of what the clients, not only today, but tomorrow and their legacy down the road is going to be, that really sets us apart.
And welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. I'm joined today by Stewart Willis. He is the president of Asset Preservation Tax and Retirement Services. Stewart, a great show we're having. Obviously, the first segment we spent talking about Social Security. In this segment, I'd like to talk to you about what people should be looking for in a financial advisor.
Yeah, I think Cynthia, it's really important to make sure that people have a checklist of what to look for, right?
Okay.
And when it comes to looking for a financial advisor, the one thing that matters most is that they are a fiduciary. And what a fiduciary is somebody who puts your interests above their own. Somebody who does better when you do better, right? So, with a broker, oftentimes they're compensated by mutual fund companies, or they're, if you see an A, B, C, D, or E, behind the name of your mutual fund, that means you're in a loaded fund that pays your advisor. So, the one question I would ask yourself is, how much are you paying your advisor? And if the answer is, I don't know, that's a major, major problem, because you have to understand all advisors get paid. I get paid. If I wasn't getting paid, I wouldn't be hanging out with my clients. Now, some of them I love to death, but still, it's a business, right? This is a business at the end of the day. Everyone gets paid. And if you don't understand how to get paid, that's a big issue. So number one, make sure they're a fiduciary.
Okay.
Number two, you want to make sure that they're an independent advisor, like we are at Asset Preservation. At Asset Preservation, we have multiple custodians, whether we use TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, or Charles Schwab, which is a phenomenal company as well. We can use all three custodians. They're all great companies, but we're not beholden to any one of them. Really important. We're not paid by mutual fund companies, so we use multiple institutional money managers. It's just not us picking your funds for you. It's us picking your portfolios. It's a kind of different, strategy there.
Sure.
The other thing, you want to make sure that they're a holistic planner. That's super important as well. And make sure that they are servicing you. That, we have our concierge services, which makes, we give you that white glove treatment.
Stewart, I want to loop back for just a second, because I heard you say something very important, a holistic planner. What exactly do you mean by holistic planner?
Right. So most advisors obviously are pretty good about talking about investments, and we do that as well, of course. But not only do we look at investments, we also want to make sure that your advisor is looking at taxes. So we talk about taxes all the time, but it's a super critical part. We think taxes are almost as important as the underlying investment itself. So they need to understand taxes. Do they do estate planning as well inside the firm? Do they have an in-house person that can handle that? Do they have a relationship with an attorney that, for an extended period of time, that can do a living trust for you as well? Super important to have that as well. The other thing, retirement planning. Can they do cash flow analysis throughout your entire lifetime to see, is your money going to last forever? A lot of people, when they start talking about retirement planning, they're really just trying to sell you an income product. And you start hearing about income, lifetime guaranteed income. Those are typically really expensive insurance products. Oftentimes, if you go to these dinner seminars and they're selling you these expensive products, it's usually a pretty big problem. I would always get a second opinion on those before you commit to those. Do they do insurance planning as well? You need to make sure you look at all aspects of your plan, and that's what, to us, a holistic planner does.
All right, I love that. Well, Stewart, I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, that concierge service, that white glove service, if you will. Why is that important, and why does that set you apart from some other advisors in the area?
Yeah, so I think, maybe I'm a little hard on the advisors that work with us here as well. But, listen, our clients have our cell phone numbers. They can reach us 7 days a week. It's really important in these crazy volatile times that they can reach somebody all the time. And, even while I've been taping the show here at Commercial, I'm looking down at my phone. I'm getting messages from clients with this crazy volatility. But, we like to have white glove service. We want to make sure that when you come into asset preservation, you're offered some, great drinks. You can have a great time. You can relax. This is supposed to be a setting where we enjoy each other, right? And I tell people all the time, you don't like me on TV, you're not going to like me in person. I'm exactly the same person. So if you don't like me, go ahead and call Cynthia here, but no.
I don't know if I can give the same advice as you, but I'll try.
Are you reachable at 833-652-7829? Because I'm sure you'll get some calls here.
Well, people may think I work in the office with you. Who knows? Who knows? That would be fun.
No, but I think the concierge service are really, really important.
Absolutely, and it does set you apart because obviously we've talked in the past that when certain things happened in the market, some advisors were hiding underneath their desk. You have always been reachable. So, Stewart, why do you have such a passion for being so available to your clients?
Well, because listen, people right now are scared. They're seeing craziness in the markets. They want to make sure, like I had one of my favorite people on the planet today called and said, Stewart, we need to go to cash. Let's go ahead and sell everything. Let's go to cash. I said, sir, why are you saying, what's going on? He's like, no, I'm watching the news. The market's crashing. Let's go ahead and sell. I said, well, take a look at your portfolio. Go ahead, log on to TD Ameritrade, look at your account right now, and what are you saying? He's like, well, I'm down 0.2% right now. And he's like, but the market's down 2%. How's that the case? It's because we have tactical asset management in some case where basically what that is when your money manager isn't just holding the same positions, in a recession or a pull drawback. They actually rotate into defensive positions. And he's like, well, but I'm watching the news and the market says it's crashing and ours isn't crashing. Well, listen, our money managers don't get it right all the time, right?
Absolutely.
People are going to get it wrong every once in a while. But just be careful when you're watching the news because the news doesn't generally reflect what's happening in your portfolio. You've got to separate the two.
Absolutely. Well, Stewart, I know you have a very special offer to present to the viewers at home today. Let's talk about what that is before we reopen the phone lines.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're offering today is that complimentary portfolio review. And in that complimentary portfolio review, we will take a look at what kind of risks you're taking in your portfolio, what kind of fees are you paying, what kind of tax issues are hiding in there. But you have to take action. Give us a call at 833-652-7829, or even easier, if you click on that QR code, it'll take you to apsi.com, apsitaxes.com, and you can fill out the form that shows that you're interested in a complimentary portfolio review. We'd be glad to help and give you a second opinion on what's going on in your current situation.
Stewart, thank you so much. To the viewers at home, the phone number to call is on your screen, and that number is 833-652-7829. We are going to take a very short commercial break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to talk to Stewart about pensions, so stay tuned.
This is the story of how you get from here to there. Right now, you're here, but in the future, you want to be there. And from here, there looks pretty good. But so few get to there. Why? Well, of those who do make it, some will have luck, but most will have a strategy. They will save and invest, grow and protect, and they will work with advisors who will help guide their way. If you're looking to get somewhere, to get there, we know how to set a course. It's what we do, and we do it well. We're investment specialists, retirement advisors, insurance experts, and financial planners. We have innovative wealth tracking tools to monitor your progress every step of the way. Wherever you are now, we can help you get to where you want to be. The road between here to there is shorter for those who know the way.
And welcome back to the Asset Preservation Hour. My name is Cynthia DeFazio. I'm joined today by Stewart Willis. He is the president of Asset Preservation Tax and Retirement Services. Stewart, I would love to spend some time in this final segment talking to you a little bit about pensions, because obviously the face of retirement has changed. Are you still seeing pensions?
Well, yeah, you know, the neat thing about Arizona here is that we have some big employers here that still have pensions, like Honeywell, for example. And a lot of people are taking advice from, you know, their friends at the water cooler. They're saying, you know, hey, you need to take a lump sum or take it out, take the annuity payment or whatever. You listen, everybody's situation is different. Let's talk about, you know, Honeywell, for example. You know, if you started with Allied Signal, for example, your options are different than if you started with another, you know, section of the company. It all depends on what your specific pension plan says. For example, we have a client that works for Honeywell that basically, if she defers her pension to later date, she gets a big, you know, credit for that, kind of like Social Security, like a delayed retirement credit. So we actually added it to our plan for her to delay her pension until 68 years old, because it allowed us time to eliminate that income out of her you know, taxable income. It gave us room for tax planning, Roth conversions, things like that, and it would grow. There's other parts of the same Honeywell pension that don't grow if you delay it. So everybody has a different plan, and you want to make sure when you're making a plan that it's the right choice for you. Does it make sense to cash out your pension, take the lump sum? Maybe, maybe not. You know, a lot of people, Cynthia, are thinking, hey, if I take the lump sum, we can make sure it passes to my kids.
Right.
Listen, we have to look at your mortality, your spouse's mortality. Do you have a spouse? Do you want to pass it? What is your goal?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge choice. There is no right or wrong answer. You just have to make an informed decision. You're all adults out there. You know, all we can do is say, hey, this is my concern. If you take the lump sum, you have to have enough discipline to make sure that you're only taking X amount out and you can live this long. You know, sometimes, you know, it doesn't make sense to take the lump sum. Everybody's situation's different.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Stewart, I want to also talk a little bit about fees, if we could. What should people be thinking about when it comes to fees, if you will?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I think, you know, people have become very fee conscious. And I think sometimes they're, you know, distracted. They don't see the forest through the trees because, you know, everyone says, oh, well, you're going to charge a 1% fee or 1.5% fee or whatever the fee is. And they're saying, I don't have to pay my current advisor. Well, here's what you have to remember. Everybody gets paid. Right?
Sure.
And if you're talking to an advisor, he's not doing it just because he likes you. He's doing it also, or she's doing it because she gets paid to do it. And how do you think they get paid? That's why it's important to be dealing with a fiduciary. We always kind of get back to that. You want to understand how they're getting paid. So for example, if you bought a variable annuity that has, you know, that has a lifetime guaranteed income, and, you know, a lot of people don't realize that they're paying 3, 4, 4.5%, 5% in fees, and nobody's cared because for the last, you know, 12 years, the market has gone vertical. But now that we're starting to see the market turn over, and they realize, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was paying, you know, 1.5% for mortality and expense fees, for example, 1% fund fees. We're paying for these lifetime income riders that are 1%. You know, they add up and you're paying 3, 4, 5% in fees. It adds up. So, for example, Cynthia, if you look at the S&P 500 and look from, you know, 2000 to 2012, the S&P went down, up, but ended up in the same place it was 12 years later or 12 years earlier. So, if you go ahead and you add a, you know, 4% fee, you know, over 12 years, you're down 48%. Rather than being break even. So you have half of your money just because of these parasitic fees.
Wow.
You know, and you know, my son was in motorsports growing up. He used to race go-karts all over the world.
Okay.
And you know, everything we did was to reduce drag, which is like, you know, aerodynamics. And it's the same thing. Imagine being in a race car or a go-kart or whatever, and you're towing around a parachute. That's exactly what these hidden parasitic fees do, is
Sure.
they cost you money, you don't even see it. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I have the great advisor, he doesn't charge me anything. Well, yeah, because he's getting paid behind the table there.
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Everybody gets paid. You have to know how they're getting paid. It's super, super important. On the other hand, we are fiduciaries. So we basically manage fees or manage portfolios for a percentage of the assets under management. There's that saying, when you do better, we do better. It's the same thing with us. We get paid based on a percentage of assets under management.
Yeah.
And some people just can't stomach that. They listen, I just can't pay fees. Well, we're not the right place for you. Because
Right.
if you want to be the ostrich that pretends your advisor doesn't make money on you, you're just tricking yourself.
Well, Stewart, it makes sense because obviously when the client does better, you do better. It's a win-win situation. And I love the fact that you're transparent about that because I think that's very important.
Yeah, you know what? It really is a different time now. I think, clients are starting to understand it. We're getting away from all of these loaded mutual funds and all of these super expensive positions. All of the positions we use are no load inside our securities. So a lot of our portfolios have ETFs. They're managed by some of the best and biggest money managers in the world, in my opinion. So, for example, if we have ETFs that have a 0.2 or 0.3 or 0.4% cost, and you compare it to a mutual fund you're paying 1%, 1.2, 1.5%, you're still paying fees.
Yeah.
They're just hidden and you don't see them unless you're reading through that big book, that big prospectus. And if you have 50, mutual funds in your portfolio, and there's no chance you're reading that prospectus.
That's true.
Right?
That's
Nobody's
true.
reading that much. But I think it's important to be aware. You should know what kind of fees you're paying. And if you just give us a call at 833-652-7829, we'll go through all of those fees, all of those risks, all of your tax issues. Take action today. Click on that QR code. We'd be glad to help.
Stewart, thank you so much for another amazing episode this week. To the viewers at home, most specifically, thank you for spending time with us. That number to call is 833-652-7829. Any questions that you may have about planning your perfect retirement or tax planning, Stewart has the answers for you. Don't miss the opportunity to call in today, 833-652-7829. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we can't wait to see you back next week on the Asset Preservation Hour. Take care.